This recording will cover universal design and universal design for learning. It will also talk about the graphic organizers assignment and the fourth instructional activity assignment, which I also called your final project. Okay, so look through and listen to this recording, and then I'll go into Blackboard and show you what's on there. So there are some links in this PowerPoint, and to watch those, you can't go through the recording. You need to go to the actual PowerPoint that's on Blackboard. And I'll come back to Blackboard, but let me just show you the PowerPoint is right here. Okay, the UDL PowerPoint, including graphic organizers assignment and fourth instructional activity assignment. So this is all under the assignments tab, and I'll come back to Blackboard in just a second. But there are some links that you will need, so you'll need to watch that. Go here to the PowerPoint. Okay, you can't access the links from this recording. So hopefully you've heard about universal design for learning, in some of your other classes. I know if you took class with Dr. Murphy, you've probably heard about universal design for learning. But before I get to that, I want to kind of talk about just a few suggestions and some thoughts on including students in general education. So a couple things. You can think about how can you limit distractions. And so this kind of goes back to the classroom environment that we talked about kind of way back at the beginning of the semester, and how you can set up the environment and how can you create the environment to limit distractions, especially for students who might have learning disabilities or ADHD or something like that. Okay, maybe seat the student near the teacher, away from noisy places. Don't let them have access to looking out the window or looking out the door, or something that might distract them. And keep your routine simple and direct. All right, some other things you can do to increase attention. Of course, this doesn't work. All right, hold on now 1 second. Sorry, I had to resize the little box thing, and I'll have to stop a couple times to do that for some as we go on. All right, some other things you can think about are ways to increase attention, their attention, right? How can you get their attention on you, on the content, on whatever you're doing? So you can shorten the task, break it into smaller parts. Oh, first we're going to do this, then we'll take a break, then we'll come back and do this. Use a lot of shorter sessions of distributed practice, make tasks more interesting. Interest Center, graphic organizers, which ties into our assignment, and give them new tasks, not just the same old things that they've been doing every single day. You can also help students to improve their organization, provide clear classroom rules and teacher expectations, establish routines, list of materials, check that student has a homework before leaving, especially for your students with ADHD, with learning disabilities, with maybe ASD, autism spectrum disorder, something like that. Make sure you're checking before they leave, and even use a different color folder. And that was some of this stuff was addressed in one of those podcasts that we listened to way back when. All right, you can also teach your students to improve their listening skills. Keep your instructions simple and short, right? KISS, Kiss. Keep it simple and short. I know short, that's not really what the second S is for, but that's what we're going to say. You can have students repeat the instructions, to themselves out loud. You could alert students and say, hey, this is important. Write this down. Listen carefully. You're going to need to know this, something like that. Use visual aids, charts, pictures, graphics, and graphic organizers. That's why we're doing an assignment about graphic organizers. You can also help students learn how to manage their time. Setting up a specific routine and sticking to it is really important, and being truthful about the time. If you say you have 5 minutes, okay, you have 5 minutes, and then we're going to blah, blah, blah. Set a timer or whatever, but make sure you are actually giving them 5 minutes. I used to be, when I taught ECE 321, it was what the early childhood math methods class, I used to say, okay, 5 minutes. And my students got to know me so well that they would say, Dr. Fry's 5 minutes or real 5 minutes? Because, my 5 minutes would stretch to 7 minutes and then to 10 minutes. Well, that was bad. Don't do that. Keep your students, give them a routine, give them a schedule, and stick to it. Make a list to help students stay organized, behavior contracts if you need, stuff like that. And then also provide opportunities for moving. How can you, instead of standing up there and lecturing for 7 hours a day, right? How can you allow students to move? Well, maybe you can have a routine where they get papers, where they sharpen pencils. You can have them standing, sitting, moving. There are a lot of those standing desks out there now, right? If a student needs to stand, maybe just put their desk, where they won't block anybody else, and let them stand, right? The world's still going to go on, even if they're standing up to do their work. Have work centers, and of course, use computers. All right, so those are just kind of some general suggestions that I wanted to share with y'all. And now I want to talk about universal design for learning. And of course, I have to move the thingy thing again. Okay, so this is from this textbook, Teaching Students with High Incidence Disabilities. We're not using it for this class, but I do like the textbook. It's by Marianne Prater, just in case you happen to, if you have it, or, if you're interested in another textbook, this is a good one to use. All right, so let's talk about universal design first of all, and then we'll get into universal design for learning. So universal design, kind of in the broadest sense, is just systems that consider and are designed from the beginning to be accessible to the broadest range of individuals possible. So what that means is something like an automatic door, right? You know how you have, if you're walking along and you see it's usually a silver, excuse me, a silver like thing that you press, and sometimes there's an icon of an individual in a wheelchair. So that is something that is universal design. Curb cut, right? Also something, when you're walking on the sidewalk and the sidewalk goes down and goes flat to the road, that's a curb cut. That's to make it accessible to individuals in wheelchairs. Okay, so that's what universal design is. And then when you start thinking about universal design for learning, that's where you look at flexible curricular materials, built-in alternatives within the instructional design of the materials, and this improves systems for both those with and without disability. Sorry, I think I said that kind of poorly. So what that means, built-in alternatives. Well, how can we give our students choices? What can we do to really reach the needs of all students? All right, let me move it just a little tiny, teeny bit. Okay, universal design for learning. Kind of a pre-referral approach before you refer someone to special education. This is kind of a whole school approach. It just gives choices and preferences. So kind of thinking of differentiated instruction, you may have heard that term, kind of the same thing, right? So it's provided by using a flexible, universal design for learning is kind of a flexible process guided by database decisions and driven by assessment results, and in the past, or still currently, referred to as differentiated instruction. Again, there are some links that I want you to watch, but remember, you have to do that from Blackboard, from the actual PowerPoint, not this recording. Okay, and you'll see what I mean in just a second. All right, so here are a bunch. I really want, if you only choose one, I really want you to watch this bottom one. It's a, I don't know, middle school or high school, and she says, okay, here's your goal by the end of the day is to learn about the sun or something like that. I'm going to give you three choices, three ways that you can do this. One is you go on the computer, you watch a video, you answer questions. One is you look in the textbook, you take notes about key points. And the other one is you do something else on the computer, maybe go to websites, right? So giving them choices to get to the same goal. And what those can be referred to are multiple means of representation, engagement, and expression, okay? This right here is an example of UDL in practice, and this is in a grade 1 math class, so that might be of interest to some of you. But multiple means of representation. How are you going to present content for your students? Well, you could use a PowerPoint, right? You could use videos, you could use lectures, you could use textbook, all of those things. And so things that you probably see, especially if you're out in practicum classes, clinical hours, you probably see a lot of these things going on and maybe just didn't realize that it was universal design for learning. All right, multiple means of engagement. How can you engage students? Well, you can have them listen to podcasts, right? You can have them work in small groups. You could have them be active, be actively engaged. Okay, and then the last one is multiple means of expression. How can they show you what they know? What are some different ways that you can accept responses from them? Well, maybe you have some students who are really strong writers. Okay, so let them write. And maybe you have some students who aren't so strong with either the writing process or handwriting, so you could let them type on the computer. You could let them act it out. You could let them do a skit. You could let them draw a picture. All of those things are multiple means of representation, engagement, expression. Okay, again, I would recommend watching at least this last one and this one, because it really shows you UDL in practice. Okay, so that's universal design for learning. I just wanted to touch base about that. Okay, now I'm going to move into graphic organizers and lots more links. Y'all are welcome. And if we were, face to face, I would show these to you in class, but these ones are really good. This one is a specific example about using graphic organizers in second grade writing, so that might be something that is of interest to you. I'm sure you all are familiar with graphic organizers. I'm sure you've seen them before. The one that everyone usually refers to is the KWL chart. I'm grunting because I'll have to move the thing again. So we all have seen this one, right? What I know, what I want to know, what I learned. You could easily do this, as a small group activity. Okay, get together and talk about what you know or what you think you know about the Civil War. Well, what do you want to know? Come up with 3 or 4 bullet points. And then at the end, you go back to what I learned. Okay, and I know I skipped this slide. I did it on purpose. Okay, well, not really on purpose. I should have. Anyway, all right, so your graphic organizer's assignment, trying to not cut any of it off. All right, so you will select 4 graphic organizers and explain how they can be used in various classroom settings and provide examples. You're going to actually show me what the graphic organizer looks like. Okay, you're not just gonna like tell me, oh, I would use KWL chart, and guess what? You can't use KWL. So you will use, show me how you've used, how you will use, how you've seen them used, these type of graphic organizers in your classroom. So include an example, you can hold up a copy of it, you could show it, whatever works for you. And you will submit this as a Flipgrid post, okay? And I will show you where that is in just 1 second. So that's the first thing, the graphic organizer's assignment, pretty straightforward. And then the next thing I want to talk about, this is the last assignment. This is the last assignment. I know I just said that, but I had to pause it to resize it, of course. So this is the 4th instructional activity assignment. I also, like I said, I also called it final project. So what you're going to do, you're going to choose another instructional activity from your textbook. So just like you've done for activities 1 through 3, right? You submitted instructional activity number 1, number 2, and number 3. So that part is exactly the same. You will video yourself and you will present it as a YouTube link. So all this part is exactly the same, right? You're going to just present another instructional activity. The difference comes in this one for this activity. So you're just going to take an activity from the textbook, not one that you've done before for numbers 1, 2, or 3. You will choose a new instructional activity, presented as a YouTube link, okay, same old, and then you will include an actual lesson plan that follows the template posted on Blackboard. The lesson plan is not a complete lesson plan template, so if you're doing lesson plans for other classes, I did take some stuff out, but you will follow just what's on the lesson plan template. It's exactly the same as what you've seen before, except I added a section for Universal Design for Learning. So what you will do is I want you to take any part of the activity lesson plan, discuss how you could adapt it under the UDL framework. Okay, so you can just include this in the actual lesson plan that you submit. There's a bullet, and I'll show you that in just a second. You want to think about multiple means of engagement or representation or expression. You can, of course, certainly hit all 3 of these, for one area, one part of the activity. You can certainly talk about all 3 of these, but you really only need to talk about one. Okay, it is a total of 25 points, so 10 points for the instructional activity number 4, as it's been, right, for the last 3 activities, 10 points for the lesson plan, and 5 points for UDL. All right, so I'm going to go into Blackboard, and I'm going to pause it so I can resize again. And of course, I'm running out of time, but that's my normal. Okay, so if you go under the assignments tab, this is posted. The Flipgrid post is now posted. So you will click right here and make your graphic organizers post. Okay, remember you need to log in with your g.fmarion account. And then here is the new folder, instructional activity number 4 and lesson plan template. So if you click on this folder, okay, here's a PowerPoint, right, that I'm just referred to. And again, this is where you need to go to watch the links. Here is your lesson plan template. Okay, so again, it's also called the final project. The only part that's new is the Universal Design for Learning section. Okay, and as I've mentioned, you will submit both the lesson plan right here, right? So you remember you will submit the lesson plan here and a video presentation as you have done, and you will submit the YouTube link right here. Right, so that is this part right here, the 4th instructional activity, exactly what you have done for the 1st, 2nd, and 3rd instructional activities. The only thing different is, in addition to this, you will also submit this lesson plan template. Let me just show you it really quickly. Okay, I paused because I didn't want to waste time because I am, of course, running out of it. But as you'll notice, this is exactly the same template that has been posted that you've been following for your other instructional activities, teacher materials, student materials, criteria, all of these things, step-by-step procedure, closure with student involvement. Don't forget about that. And then what I added was under the special accommodations, UDL component adaptation. So again, tell me the area so you can choose the guided practice, whatever. Choose whatever you want from up here and tell me how you could adapt it under the Universal Design for Learning framework. All right, so I'm going to pause it again. Okay, and then you will submit the lesson plan here. Your 4th instructional activity will go here. Both of these will make up your final project, and then the Flipgrid post is your other final assignment. Okay, that's it, and I'm out of time.